They mocked my husband, laughed in my face, and thought their lies would bury us. My family didn't just dismiss Malik as a fraud, they weaponized their prejudice to erase him, believing I'd stay silent. But when I uncovered their venom, I didn't just fight back. I exposed their truth, and their world crumbled under the weight of their own deceit. I am Zara. My parents said it was my duty to give up my name, my credit, my future so my brother's fiancée could get her dream house. They forged papers, lied to the bank, and when I found out, they smiled like it was nothing. But if family can smile while they betray you, what else are they capable of? I hadn't been back to my parents' house in over 2 years. Not since the last anniversary party where Amira made a toast that felt more like a roast. So when Mom called the evening before to invite me to brunch, last-minute casual, like I was an afterthought, I hesitated. "Just some croissants and berries, family only," she said. "If you're free." If I was free. It was a Saturday. She knew I didn't work Saturdays. She'd known that for years. But I'd barely hung up when a text from Amira pinged. "Bring your soldier if he's not too busy playing hero." The jab stung. Her mockery of Malik's service a fresh wound, but I smiled through the phone and told her, "Sure, we'll be there." Malik looked at me from across the kitchen, arms crossed, tea cooling in his hands. "You sure, Z? I don't mind staying home. We could go kayaking or see that blues band you like." I shook my head. "I need to show them that I'm still trying." He didn't answer right away. Just walked over, kissed my temple, and whispered, "I got you always." That was Malk. Quiet power, steady warmth. He'd seen the bruises my family left behind. Not physical ones, but the kind you wear in your silence. We drove through the blooming magnolia-lined streets of our North Carolina neighborhood. I caught myself fiddling with the sleeve of my blouse, a nervous tic from childhood. By the time we pulled into the driveway, the knot in my chest was back, tight, familiar. Mom greeted us at the door, lipstick too bright, smile too wide. "Oh, there you are," she chirped, like we were guests at a hotel, not her daughter and son-in-law. Come in. "Shoes off, please. You know how Amira is about the floors." "Right, Amira." She appeared behind Mom like a perfectly filtered Instagram story. Pressed skirt, hair curled just enough to look undone. She leaned in to hug me quickly, then turned to Malik. "Wow," she said, eyes sweeping over him. "So, this is the man in uniform. You clean up nice." "Well," Malik smiled politely. "Nice to see you too." "Nice," Amira smirked, her voice dripping with condescension. "I bet those medals are nice too, if they're real." The room tensed, but she laughed it off, as if her words were harmless. "I thought the military was less of a thing now," she continued, looping her arm through mine. "Kids just go to tech boot camps these days, don't they?" I didn't answer. My jaw tightened. Inside, the table was already full. Cousins, aunts, Amira's friends who always seemed to orbit around her like satellites. Malik looked around for a chair. There wasn't one. "Oh," Mom said, feigning surprise. "Must have miscounted. There's a folding chair in the corner." He pulled it over and sat without a word. I wanted to say something, but I'd learned long ago that silence was survival here. Just as we began passing plates, Amira clinked her orange juice glass. "Hope you don't mind eating like in the field, Malik," she joked. A few chuckles, even from Dad. "What's next, Amira?" I snapped, unable to hold back. "Going to ask him to salute the crescents?" She rolled her eyes. "Lighten up, Zara, it's just a joke." But her smirk said it was anything but. Malik smiled again, cool, measured. He was used to discomfort. Combat zones taught him that. But this was different. This was a room full of people who shared my blood, pretending he didn't belong. Then came the moment that made the air shift. "So," Dad began, scooping oatmeal onto his plate. "What do you do these days, Malik? Since you're retired from the, what was it again? Special Forces," I said before Malik could answer. A slow chuckle rippled around the table like I'd said he was an astronaut. Aunt Nia lifted her coffee mug. "Special Forces, sweetie. Anyone can say that. Prove it." I blinked. "Excuse me?" She shrugged, playful but sharp. "I mean, how do we even know? People exaggerate on resumes all the time." "Exaggerate?" I stood, my voice shaking with fury. He risked his life while you sipped coffee and judged him. Mom waved a hand. Zara, sit down. You're embarrassing yourself. But Malik's calm gaze held me steady, urging me to keep going. My heart pounded in my ears. I looked at my sister. Nothing. No defense. Just her stirring her juice like it was all beneath her attention. He doesn't need to prove anything, I said, my voice calm but cutting. Not to you. The room quieted, awkward and brittle. No one spoke, not even Malik. After brunch, we got in the car. The drive home was quiet. Outside the window, spring looked beautiful, green and white blooming in defiance of the chill that had just passed. I wanted to cry, but tears felt too easy. Instead, I opened my phone. I wasn't looking at family photos. I wasn't reading texts. I was looking at something else, something I'd been building. A record, receipts, proof. They don't see what I see, I whispered. But they will. And that's when I saw it. Amira posted while we were still at the table. It was the kind of post you don't expect from your own sister, at least not when you're still chewing your brunch muffins. There it was, a selfie. Amira smirking, angled just enough to show the brunch spread behind her and the empty chair where Malik had sat. The caption, Saturday with the soldier guy. Make-believe medals, family first. I showed it to Malik, my hands trembling. She's mocking you publicly now. He glanced at the screen, his jaw tight. Let her. She's digging her own grave. His words lit a fire in me. Amira wasn't just humiliating us, she was daring me to fight back. I stared at the screen, the heat rushing up my neck. There were already 15 likes. A few laughing emojis in the comments. Aunt Kimmy, he's sweet though, probably works retail now, Cousin Jamal, y'all are wild. And of course, Amira, replying beneath it all. We just keeping it light, fam. Y'all know how it is, how it is. I sat still for a long moment, phone frozen in my palm. The ceiling fan above our living room spun lazily, and outside the window the sun was already beginning to dip, casting golden streaks across the tiled floor. From the kitchen, I heard the soft clink of a glass and running water. Malik was rinsing his mug. He walked past me without a word, opened the sliding door, and stepped onto the porch. No sound, no confrontation. That was him. He didn't need to explode. Silence for Malik meant he'd already done the math and accepted the sum. I followed a few minutes later, barefoot, arms folded. He stood with his back to me, watching the sky shift. I didn't say anything. I knew better than to ask if he was okay. I knew the answer. Instead, I turned around, went back inside, sat at the dining table, and opened my laptop. For a moment, I just stared at the blank document. Then I began typing date, time, screenshot, caption, comments. I wasn't just saving it. I was recording it. I'd done this before once, 3 years ago, after Amira forgot to send us the Christmas invite, and later claimed we'd decided not to come. I'd archived her email, the one with the guest list, the one that didn't include our names. I'd kept that one. I kept this one too because I was done letting them rewrite my reality. I called Amira that night, my voice cold. Take down the post, she laughed, sharp and dismissive. You're so sensitive, Zara. It's just social media. Grow up. Grow up, I shot back. You're slandering a veteran. You'll regret this. She hung up, but her laughter echoed, fueling my resolve to expose her. The scrolling stopped when I came across another memory. Graduation, my MSW ceremony. My parents had RSVP'd. Even told me they were so proud. But they didn't show. Said there was a mix-up, a car breakdown. I'd stood outside that auditorium in heels that pinched, holding my degree with a forced smile while everyone else took pictures with family. Then another one. The time Amira interrupted my anniversary dinner at the bistro just to announce her marketing agency's new logo. My parents clapped like it was her milestone. How many little slices had they taken from me over the years? How many moments I swallowed just to keep peace? I shut the laptop slowly, then picked up my phone again. I stared at her post. My thumb hovered over the comment box. I could have written 100 things, but in the end I typed just one sentence. That was low. I'll remember this. I hit send. The reply came back within seconds. I'm just keeping it real. You wanted to play house with a fantasy. Own it. Play house. Fantasy. I closed the app before I could react. But then I commented again, my fingers flying. Fantasy? His bronze star says otherwise. Check your facts, Amira. The likes on my comment surged, and I knew I'd struck a nerve. My hand trembled a little. Not from fear. From restraint. I stood, walked to the printer, and hit print. The screenshot came out crisp and clear. I took it, found a thumbtack, and pinned it to the corkboard in my home office just above my desk. It sat next to the Christmas guest list, next to the RSVP email from graduation. Proof. If they want to challenge who he is, I murmured to myself, then they'll learn who I am. I didn't mean it as a threat. I meant it as a promise. Later that night, I checked on Malik. He was in the garage tuning his motorcycle, something he did when he didn't want to think. I left him alone. Instead, I pulled out a notebook from the bottom drawer of my nightstand. It was leather-bound, soft from use. I'd started it the first year we got married. At the time, it was filled with meal plans I wanted to try, home projects, plans. Now, it would hold something else. I opened to a fresh page. At the top, I wrote, "The line is drawn," and beneath that, just one word, enough. The next morning, I made a call to someone they'd never dare mock. The line disconnected with a clean click. I sat back, letting the morning silence of the house wrap around me. The tea on the table had gone cold, untouched. Malik was already gone. He'd left early for his check-in at Fort Bragg, said he had paperwork to complete for the school counseling certification board, but I suspected he needed the familiar rhythms of base life today. After what Amira posted, even silence must have felt safer than this house. I didn't tell him where I was going. By 9:15, I was already on the road, heading south. The drive to Fort Bragg took just over 45 minutes, traffic light this early on a Monday. When I arrived, I got a text from Mom. "Zara, stop stirring trouble. You're embarrassing the family." I didn't reply. Her words only hardened my determination. When I pulled up to the gate, I handed over my temporary visitor pass and ID, trying not to look nervous. The guard scanned them both, eyed the military decal on my windshield, and nodded once. "You're clear, ma'am. Welcome." The word hit strange. Welcome. I hadn't felt that in a while. Inside the main administrative building, the air was cooler, sharper, military efficient. I stepped up to the reception desk and asked, "I'm here to see Major General Nia Carver." I'm Malik's wife, Zara. The receptionist, a young man with a buzz cut and a neutral face, tapped a few keys on his screen, then picked up the phone. 3 minutes later, a door swung open at the end of the corridor, and out stepped a tall, poised woman in pressed fatigues and amber eyes. "Mrs. Jordan," she said, extending a hand. "Come with me." I followed her into a compact office with military commendations lining the walls. She offered no small talk, just sat down behind her desk, motioned to the seat across. "I take it this is about the recent family drama?" she said, a corner of her mouth twitching upward. I froze, surprised. She gave a small nod toward her desktop monitor. "Yes, your sister's post found its way around base. Soldiers have family too. They talk." "It's not just a post," I said, my voice tight. "She's trying to ruin him." Carver's eyes softened, but her tone was firm. "Then let's make sure she didn't come to cause trouble," I said softly. But I needed to know for myself. She studied me a moment longer, then tapped her keyboard. "Then let me show you something." She turned the monitor toward me. On screen was a personnel file. Full name, Malik Jordan, and below it, titles and codes I didn't fully understand, but I recognized some things. Bronze Star, Delta Force, Operation Desert Flame, clearance level, active reserve. Major General Carver leaned back. "Your husband didn't just serve, he led 3 high-risk operations, all classified for years. He still consults on reserve intelligence. That post your sister made? It wasn't just disrespectful, it was reckless." I swallowed hard. He never told me all of that. "He's not the kind of man who brags, Mrs. Jordan." He lets actions speak. But maybe it's time someone else did the talking for him. I want to, I said, my voice steady. But they're already circling me, calling me the problem. Carver handed me a contact card. Then call this lawyer. She's handled defamation cases like this before. I drove home slower than I came. Rain had started, soft at first, then harder, making the wipers thump against the windshield in rhythm. My thoughts ran ahead of the road, skipping through years of quiet humiliations. Graduation, Christmas, that dinner where Mom leaned close and said loud enough for others to hear, "You know, Zara, not everyone can marry up." No one said a word, not even Amira. I walked into the house, soaked through, kicked off my shoes and went straight to the printer. The file I'd emailed myself was there. Malik's profile, the official one, complete with commendations. I slid it into an envelope, along with a copy of Amira's post. Across the front, I wrote, "To whom it clearly concerns," but I didn't send it, not yet. That night we sat at the kitchen table over peppermint tea. Malik didn't ask about my day. He just passed me the sugar and said, "You're quieter than usual." I looked at him for a long beat. "You didn't think I needed to know about the Bronze Star?" He smiled faintly. "You knew who I was when I sat at that brunch table without a seat. I didn't need to remind you." I reached over, took his hand. "Well," I said, "they're about to find out who I am." He tilted his head, curious. I leaned back, voice steady, and the first place I chose to begin was Amira's wedding rehearsal dinner. The invitation had no RSVP card for me. It had been a group email sent to family, buried between registry links and sage green dress codes. I showed up anyway, 4 days before the wedding, Wednesday evening, sun setting over rows of peach trees in South Carolina, and the main house of the orchard lit up like something out of a wedding magazine. I arrived alone, pulled up in my own car. Malik offered to come, but I told him no. This part wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. The valet didn't even look twice at me, just took my keys and handed over the little numbered tag. The guests, all dressed in soft mint and ivory, moved like coordinated dancers toward the patio, where string lights hovered overhead. I walked slow, heels on gravel, letting their whispers rise around me. "Is that Zara? She came alone? Did they even invite her?" Amira was near the gazebo, beaming in cream, surrounded by her bridal party and champagne satin. She caught my eye for half a second, then looked away like I was the server with a tray of mini shrimp skewers. Our mother was at the bar speaking low to someone from church, and when she turned and saw me, her jaw tensed, but she didn't come over. I didn't need a welcome. I made my way toward a table at the edge of the action and sat down, crossed my legs, smoothed the fabric of my dress. The envelope was tucked inside my clutch. I didn't touch it yet. Let them play their parts. The rehearsal dinner unfolded like a show, synchronized, scripted, smug. My father clinked his glass with a butter knife and stood. "I'd like to say a few words," he said as servers began pouring the sparkling cider. "Amira," he beamed, "has always known what she wanted. She's strategic, brilliant, and has impeccable taste. And now she's found herself a real man." People chuckled. He kept going. "A man with credentials. A man with a future. A man who didn't need to embellish anything to be respected." It was a subtle dig, but not for me, for Malik. And everyone at that table knew it. One of the groomsmen gave a tight laugh and muttered, "Ouch," into his napkin. Our mother sipped her sparkling water like it was applause. I stood, my voice cutting through the chatter. "If you're so big on truth, Dad, why didn't you ask Amira about her lies, like the Reddit post she drafted to call Malik a fraud?" Gasps rippled. Amira's face flushed. "Sit down, Zara," she hissed. "You're pathetic." I didn't budge. "Pathetic's lying about a veteran to look good." I didn't raise my voice, didn't clear my throat or wait for attention. I simply walked, heels sharp against the stone patio, up to the head table and placed the small envelope directly in front of Amira's perfect plate. "You forgot to fact-check," I said. She blinked, laughed nervously. The room stilled. "In case anyone's curious," I continued, "that fantasy of a husband you mocked? He's decorated, verified, and still trusted by agencies none of you even know exist. I stepped back. Next time you use me as the punchline to make yourself look taller, make sure you know how high the floor really is. No one moved. No one spoke. I turned and walked back down the stone path, past the stunned silence, past the low hum of embarrassment. No one followed me. At least not until I reached the parking lot. "You embarrass your sister," came a sharp voice behind me. It was my mother, heels crunching fast on the gravel. I didn't turn. "She's 4 days from her wedding, Zara, and you decided to what? Air your insecurities in front of her guests." I did face her then. She embarrassed herself, I said quietly. The moment she turned my husband into her personal roast, that post wasn't cute. That toast wasn't harmless. And you stood there and smiled. She's under pressure. Weddings are stressful. Being humiliated by family is stressful too. But no one's throwing me a spa day. She narrowed her eyes. "You always were dramatic." "No," I replied, stepping closer. "I've just stopped pretending this is love." I got in my car, shut the door, and let the air conditioning hit my face like a reset button. The tears didn't come, not because I didn't hurt, but because, for once, the hurt had a direction, a shape, and it didn't shrink me. When I got home, Malik was on the porch swing with a glass of iced tea. He looked up, gave me a long, knowing look. "You didn't need me to fight for you," he said. I leaned down, kissed his temple. "No," I said, "but I needed them to remember I wasn't who they said I was." He nodded once. "They'll remember now." And then came the wedding day, the day everything unraveled. The morning of Amira's wedding bloomed like a lie. Warm breeze, sapphire skies, rows of peach trees swaying just right, the kind of day planners dream about, the kind of day my mother would say was meant for perfection. But I knew better. I'd seen too much behind their curtain to believe in show days like this. I arrived just before the ceremony, alone again. Malik had offered gently, but I told him it would be better if I faced this part by myself, not out of pride, but because some battles weren't meant to be shared. The ushers greeted guests with sparkling cider and sunscreen towelettes. When I gave my name, one of them hesitated before pointing me toward the far right row, near a pillar directly in the sun. No canopy, no fan, just a folding chair baking on the gravel. I glanced toward the family section, shaded under elegant ivory umbrellas. Empty seat sat beside my mother. She saw me, looked straight at me, then turned to whisper something to her church friend. I didn't flinch. I walked to my assigned seat and sat. A little girl with a clip-on hair bow turned around in the row ahead and looked at me with curiosity. "Aren't you her sister?" she asked. "Why are you sitting way back here?" I gave her a soft smile. "Guess I didn't RSVP fast enough." She blinked, confused, then turned back around. From where I sat, I could just barely see the floral arch where Amira now stood, glowing in lace, her groom at her side. Their officiant, a friend from her marketing firm, spoke in poetic tones about commitment, honesty, and choosing love in full view of truth. Then, Amira began her vows. "I never expected you," she said, voice trembling just enough for effect, "but when you walked into my life, you saw me. You accepted me when even my own family judged me for loving someone strong, someone real." I froze. It was deliberate. Every word a weapon dipped in sugar, heads turned subtly toward my row. A few eyebrows raised. I stared straight ahead, expression still. Let her have her performance. But the whisper came next. A bridesmaid, one of Amira's oldest friends, leaned toward the girl beside her and murmured just loud enough, "Wonder if the fake soldier's wife brought a gift." They chuckled. I didn't move. Then it happened. The whisper stopped. A few gasps sounded behind me. Movement rippled down the aisle like wind through wheat. Malik. He stepped onto the stone path, walking slowly, in full dress blues, not a costume, not a rented suit, the real thing. Polished metals glinting against dark fabric. Precision and quiet power in every step. Guests straightened in their seats. Some stood. Even the violinist stilled her bow. He didn't look left or right. He walked up the aisle, past stunned bridesmaids, past Amira, who visibly paled, and stopped just short of the altar. Then calmly he turned toward the crowd and spoke. Normally, he said, "I don't interrupt weddings, especially not ones where I wasn't welcome, but my wife deserves better than the seat by the trash bins." Murmurs swept through the crowd. A few guests clapped hesitantly at first, then louder. One woman even said, "Amen." He turned to me then, just a glance. I stood without a word. I walked past Amira, who stood frozen, bouquet clutched tight. As I passed, she hissed, "You're ruining my day." I leaned in, my voice low. "You ruined mine first." I walked with Malik back down the aisle. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Every step was a boundary redrawn, a truth reestablished. By the time we reached the parking lot, the applause had faded, replaced by confusion and low conversation. But I didn't look back, because what came next they absolutely didn't see coming. By the time the wedding ended, I thought the last layer of humiliation had peeled off. But life has a strange way of stretching silence into signals. The next morning, while I was sipping my tea and organizing the last of the screenshots into a folder I labeled "Truth" for when they act confused, my phone rang. Unknown number, South Carolina area code. I picked up cautious. "Mrs. Langston here," the voice said, crisp but not unkind. "I believe we saw each other at the ceremony." I was seated near the musicians. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "We'd like to speak with you privately, just you." My first instinct was to say, "No. That woman barely blinked in my direction yesterday. Why now?" Malik passed by, his second cup of tea in hand. Eyebrow raised at my hesitation, I held up a finger. "May I ask what this is regarding?" I said. There was a brief pause. "Your sister's choices," she said simply, "and our family's name being dragged into a fire we didn't light." I met Malik's gaze. He gave a slow nod. "All right," I replied. "Where?" Before I left, Amira texted, "You're pathetic, Zara. You think you've won? This isn't over?" I didn't respond, but I saved the message. Another piece of evidence. The place was discreet, a tucked-away brunch spot that served dishes like grilled quail and rosemary scones, white tablecloths, soft jazz in the background, the kind of place you pick when you don't want to be overheard. Mrs. Langston was already seated when I arrived. Next to her was a man I hadn't met. Silver-heeled, sharp suit, posture of someone used to courtroom silence. "My brother," she said, gesturing as I sat. "Judge Isaiah Brooks." "Zara," I said quietly. I didn't offer my last name. "They didn't waste time. We've looked into your husband's military record," the judge began. "His credentials are impeccable, which makes the rumors surrounding him all the more unsettling." I folded my hands. "That wasn't us." Mrs. Langston leaned in, her tone cool. "We know that's why we invited you." I reached into my bag and pulled out the manila folder, slid it across the table. Her hands hesitated just a moment before she took it. Inside, screenshots of emails between Amira and our cousin Tiana. A draft Reddit post saved as a PDF titled, "My sister's husband lied about being special forces. Ask me how I know." I let them absorb it. The judge flipped through slowly, his jaw tightening with each page. "She was timing this," I said, voice steady, "months before the wedding. If it wasn't me calling her out, this would have been leaked by someone else publicly." He stopped on one email. "She reached out to an Army records verification forum," he muttered. "Twice," I said, and flagged one of Malik's LinkedIn posts as stolen valor. "We have the server timestamps." Silence stretched across the table. The only sounds were forks clinking softly at neighboring tables. Finally, the judge spoke. "This isn't just petty rivalry," he said. "This is defamation with intent to undermine a military family's integrity. In my circles, that's not brushed off. It's prosecuted." Mrs. Langston folded her hands atop the folder. Her eyes were gentler now, but steel lay just beneath. "I don't believe in family destroying family," she said. "But I also don't believe in marrying into madness. And if your sister is willing to lie like this, then my son deserves to know what she's capable of." I didn't flinch. "That's your call." She reached over and placed a hand lightly on mine. "Tonight, there's a family review dinner. Everyone from both sides is attending. You don't have to say a word, but we'll need these documents submitted officially." I nodded. This wasn't just about a ruined seat or a mocking toast anymore. It had become something deeper, a test of who gets to write the family's version of the truth. As I left the brunch spot, sun high and unrelenting, I didn't look back. My phone buzzed as I stepped into the parking lot. Text from Amira. "Are you seriously still dragging this out? It's over. Oh, get over it." I stared at it for a full minute. Then I added it to the folder, time-stamped because what came next they absolutely did. Smiles too tight, dresses too polished, voices a little too loud. The dining room smelled of roasted chicken and overcompensation. My mother had laid out her best porcelain, and my father opened a bottle of white he only touched when trying to impress guests. But I sat still at the end of the table, where the light barely reached, next to Malik. No one brought up what happened at the ceremony. Not Amira's cruel vow, not Malik's entrance, not the folder that changed everything. It was as if the family had made an unspoken pact to pretend it never happened. But the truth doesn't disappear just because no one says its name. "Here's to new beginnings," Amira said, raising her glass before the appetizers were even cleared. "Second chances are a gift. Some people squander them. Others rise to the occasion." Her eyes landed on me for a beat too long. A few forced laughs followed. My mother smiled, faint, brittle. Malik's hand tightened over mine under the table. Just once. I didn't flinch. From the opposite end of the table, Judge Brooks sat down his glass, cleared his throat, and stood. "I wasn't going to say anything tonight," he began, "but after everything I've seen and read, I've come to a conclusion, and I didn't come here tonight as a relative. I came as someone who understands how easily words can ruin lives." The room stilled. "You may not realize it, but what was done, targeting a veteran's record, attempting to defame and discredit a man who served this country, has legal consequences." Someone dropped a spoon. Aunt Shade muttered, "Lord have mercy." "Let me be clear," he continued, glancing directly at Amira. "Creating false narratives, initiating anonymous reports, and drafting defamatory content with intent to distribute is not just reckless. It's prosecutable." Amira froze. My father's jaw went tight. My mother's smile faded. Across from me, Mrs. Langston leaned forward, her voice smooth but firm. "If this family had simply told the truth from the beginning," she said, "we wouldn't be here discussing legal lines crossed by a bride who thought lies were fashionable." "You think I made all this up?" Amira snapped, her voice rising. "This is her doing," she pointed at me. "She set me up." I didn't move. The judge lifted an envelope and held it in the air. "These came from 3 different sources," he said. "One is from a neighbor who overheard conversations you had about falsifying accusations. One is from a cousin, your own. And one, yes, is from your sister. But all are consistent, all time-stamped, all pointing to intent." He handed a copy to my mother. She didn't take it. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," Amira said, her voice cracking. "It was just a joke. People say things online. You tried to ruin a man's life," Mrs. Langston cut in sharply for attention. Then came the slow unraveling. Uncle Kofi pushed his chair back without a word and walked out. Aunt Sade stood next, shaking her head. "I raised my kids better," she muttered. A cousin followed. Chairs scraped hardwood. The dining room grew quieter with each step toward the door. Amira looked around the room like someone stranded at sea. "Mom," she pleaded, "say something." My mother looked at me for the first time that night, and I, still seated, said quietly, "This is what silence builds." I stood slowly. Malik rose with me. I didn't look at Amira again. I walked past my father, past the untouched chicken, past the floral centerpiece that was supposed to make everything look normal, and for the first time in my life, my mother followed me out of the room, quiet, pale, and shaking. We didn't speak a word on the ride home, not a single word. The hum of the tires on the dark 2-lane road was the only sound between us. Malik kept both hands steady on the wheel, and I stared out the window, watching the trees blur into shadow. But in my head, I saw her, my mother standing just behind me as I stepped into the night, her mouth slightly open, her eyes blinking fast like someone trying to process a fire they didn't smell until it was too late. There was no blame in her face, no pride either, just a quiet kind of unraveling, like a person realizing they'd believed a story that never had a solid spine. We got home around 10 o'clock. I didn't bother changing out of my dress. I went straight to my desk, opened the file folder that held every printout, every screenshot, every typed draft I'd collected. Since Amira decided to use my husband's name like a punchline, I added one more page. It was a formal restraining order request naming Amira as the respondent, citing harassment, impersonation, and slander. I signed it. Then I printed out a cease and desist letter, attached a copy of the military verification, and addressed the envelope with steady hands. I didn't tell Malik. He already knew. The next morning, Amira called, her voice shaking. "Zara, please. I'm sorry. Don't do this. I'll take it all down." I paused, her desperation heavy in the air. "You had your chance," I said. "Now face the consequences." I hung up, my heart pounding but resolute. The next evening, I pulled my hair back into a simple ponytail and put on a clean gray blouse. Malik handed me a folder and kissed my forehead before I left. "You sure you want to go alone?" he asked gently. "I think I need to," I said. It was the HOA monthly meeting held in the community center across from the park, the same space my mother and Amira had once used for their charity galas and book club events. This time the chairs were arranged in a circle. The air smelled faintly of cedar polish and cautious curiosity. Mrs. Okoye, who once told me I smiled a little too stiffly, stood up first. "I used to think Zara was distant," she said, glancing toward me but not waiting for affirmation. "But after what came out this week, I think she was just surviving." Mr. Diallo, who lived 4 doors down, nodded solemnly. "I thought she was the angry one," he said. "Turns out she was just quiet." A few neighbors clapped. Not loudly, but loud enough. My mother sat stiffly in the front row, her lips pressed into a thin line. Amira wasn't present. I had no idea if she'd been banned or just too embarrassed to show up. Then, Mr. Adebayo, the chair of the HOA board, stood. "In light of recent documentation, testimonies, and ethical complaints submitted by multiple community members," he said, "we're putting to vote the removal of Mrs. Layla Jordan from board leadership." There was no arguing, no outburst, just a simple raising of hands. 12 for removal, 1 abstention. My mother closed her eyes and whispered something I couldn't hear. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I handed in my envelope of evidence, nodded to the board, and left as quietly as I'd come. That night, I set the envelope from the court, already addressed, to be dropped off first thing in the morning. As I placed it on the counter, my phone buzzed, once, a missed call, from my father. No voicemail, no message, just a silence I'd grown all too used to. I didn't call back. I didn't even hesitate. I deleted it, tucked the phone under the pillow, and sat beside Malik on the couch. He didn't ask. He just looked at me and nodded like he'd seen something in my face that told him what he needed to know. And for once, I didn't dream of my family. I dreamed of light and silence. 4 weeks passed. 4 quiet, strangely clean weeks. No unexpected knocks. No family texts. Not even a forwarded meme from my cousin Aisha, who used to flood our group chat with puppy videos and prayer quotes. Silence had become its own kind of weather in our apartment, steady, calm, and just cold enough to remind me I wasn't missing anything, until the phone rang. It was a Tuesday morning. I'd just finished brewing Malik's tea, the smell of chamomile creamer still clinging to my fingertips, when I saw the hospital's name flash across the screen. "Zara Jordan? He's stable but unconscious. Your mother gave us your number as the emergency secondary." I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I just said, "I'll be there." Malik didn't ask for an explanation. He set down his mug, grabbed his keys, and said, "Let's go." The drive was silent, not the kind that begged to be filled, but the kind where one person breathes for both. He reached for my hand around Durham. I let him hold it. At the hospital, the woman at the front desk asked, "Are you his daughter?" Before I could answer, my mother appeared from behind the curtain of hallway shadows. "No," she said, her voice flat and fast. "She's not family." The nurse blinked, then looked back at me, her gaze. She didn't say anything, but her expression said enough. "I've seen this before." I didn't argue. I nodded politely and stepped back. I never saw him. I sat in the hallway for 25 minutes, listening to the faint beeping behind the ICU doors. Then I stood up and left, not out of anger, not even grief, just clarity. My mother called later that night, her voice trembling. "Zara, why didn't you stay? He's your father." I took a deep breath. "You told the nurse I'm not family. You made that choice." She sobbed, but I hung up, the weight of her words settling like dust. By the following Friday, I was seated in a downtown law office, waiting on the estate mediation that had been postponed twice already, mostly due to Amira's delicate condition, as her lawyer phrased it. She hadn't announced a pregnancy until that week. Convenient. The mediator, a lean woman in wire-framed glasses, opened a folder and cleared her throat. "We've received a sealed letter from the original executor, your grandfather's lawyer." My heart didn't speed up, but I did lean in. She continued, "Per the notarized document and attached deed, the Georgia property was always intended for you, Miss Jordan. It was never to be sold or leveraged by your parents. The mortgage placed in your name is now considered fraudulent." There was a sharp inhale beside me. Amira, her face drained of color. The lawyer turned to me. "You have the right to press charges or simply reclaim ownership." I looked at her, then down at my hands, then back at Amira. She shifted in her seat, one hand on her stomach. "Zara, I'm pregnant. Please don't drag this into court. I have a family now. I made mistakes, but," I said quietly. She swallowed. "But maybe there's still a way we fix this." I stood. "You're going to be a mother. Then I hope your child has a better mother than I had, and I hope they grow up never needing to unlearn who you were." Amira's eyes filled with tears. "You're heartless," she whispered. I didn't look back. "No," I said. "I'm just done bleeding for you." No one said a word after that, not even the lawyer. I signed the reclamation forms, clear final strokes of a pen that had been waiting years to move. Outside the building, dusk was just settling. The sky was a muted indigo, the streetlights blinking on one by one like tired witnesses. Malik was parked across the street. He didn't get out, just unlocked the passenger side and turned the heater on. I stepped in, closed the door, and rested my hands on my lap. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He just reached over and held my hand, firm, warm, like a lighthouse in the fog of everything I'd finally walked away from. But freedom isn't a clean break. I reclaimed my name, my property, my truth, but the scars of their lies linger. Some nights I wake to Amira's voice in my head, her accusations cutting fresh wounds. The restraining order keeps them distant, but their shadows creep into my dreams. I'm stronger now, but strength doesn't erase the years I spent believing I was less. Malik and I move forward, together, but I carry the weight of a family lost, not with regret, but with the quiet ache of knowing I deserved better. And that's enough, for now.